Hello. Today I'm going to walk you through DocLink functionality, including loading a document, moving the document through a workflow, email notifications, document annotations, searching methods, and dealing with audit documents. For this demonstration, we're going to assume documents have already been indexed into DocLink. This could be one of a couple different methods via OCR, email import, or scanning physical paper into a folder that is then indexed into DocLink. And the first step then is going to be that we're going to log into DocLink as an accounts payable user, Jane. When we log into the DocLink Smart Client, we're going to go to the Workflow tab at the top and click on the AP processing workflow, then go to the unprocessed status of that workflow and click on Search. Here we see a couple different documents that are waiting in our queue to be worked on. We're just going to deal with the top document first. This is an AP invoice coming from our Apple vendor. And we can see the first thing is we have a bunch of document properties that have been indexed to that document. Invoice number, invoice information, vendor information. The next step in this process is to do GL coding. So this is going to take the place of doing GL coding in Sage 100 in the invoice data entry screen. We bring that functionality into DocLink so we don't have to do double entry. The first step of this process is that I click on the Create New Stamp button. Everything in the header data fills in. This is the information that would come from the indexed values that we see here. The last step in this process is I need to GL code it to whatever accounts that I need to code it to. I can do this as a manual process by clicking the Add button. We use the same GL codes that we do from Sage 100. If I wanted to filter these down from a user, let's say we didn't want a user to see anything but the 400s, then we can filter these down a little bit more. We can also use what we call templating. So we know that this Apple invoice comes in a lot. We get the same component speakers all the time from Apple. So instead of filling all that data in, we're going to just use a template to fill in the Apple vendor information. By doing this, we can see that our information in our header has filled out completely, and our line details have filled out as well. Last step in this process is we want to stamp that document. When we do that, DocLink is creating an audit trail. So if we go and look at the second page of that in the thumbnail view, we can see our original invoice. We can see our stamped page. That is now the second page of that invoice. This is one used to make an audit connection so we can see what data is going to be imported into Sage 100. We can also use this for future use. So if someone needs to come back and look and see what was imported, we can, and be certain that this is the data that was imported versus something else. All right, the last step of this process is to send to an approver. Now we could actually do this via some automation. If we want to look at the distribution total, we can do dollar value rules that would send to an appropriate approver based on those dollar value limits automatically. We'd simply send it to a workflow status called auto route or auto move, something like that, where DocLink is going to interrogate that document and the data and then send it to that appropriate person. For this example, I'm just going to send it to our CFO. All right, the next step in this process is the approval process. Now we've sent the document to the CFO, and they need to know when they receive documents. So DocLink will be able to send out document notifications. We go and look at our CFO email here. A couple new notifications came in from that document we sent. The look and feel of this can change. We can do whatever we want to template the notifications. So it might look something like this, or we're just notifying them that something is in their workflow. We can also do something like this, where the document is actually attached. The document data is a little bit more verbose, and we can actually do an approval or a denial of that document directly from email as well. So a user would not have to be logged into DocLink. They don't even need DocLink installed in their machine. They could simply just click the Approve button, and the document is going to move to that right status. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. All right, so that document has been approved by our CFO and has been sent back to our accounts payable team. So if logging back to DocLink, we're going to again pretend like we're Jane, our AP person. And instead of going to the unprocessed status, we're going to go to the approved status instead. Go ahead and click on search. You can now see that document that we've been dealing with as priority. If we double click on that, we can see the same document we've been dealing with. We can see that distribution stamp added in the thumbnail view. And we've now added one extra component here. Since we approved that document in email, an approval note has been added to that invoice. So not only does the document move, but an approval note gets added with that user's digital signature. So we can be certain the CFO is actually putting that note on and not somebody else. All right, the last step here is we want to do an import into Sage 100. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the next workflow status. I'm just reviewing this document. I'm going to go ahead and click on Enter it into the Sage. By doing this, DocLink is going to monitor that status and on a regular interval, take all the invoices that need to be imported and import them into Sage 100. So when we go into Sage 100, we can launch the invoice data entry screen. We've already selected that vendor, and then we can see that the invoice number has pulled in. We've actually created a transaction in Sage 100. All the header information, the line information that we had added to that document, the distribution stamp, has now been ported over into the invoice data entry screen. And finally, we can click on the View Documents button directly from Sage. Then we'll log in as yourself, of course. And DocLink is going to be able to find that document searching by the vendor code and the invoice number. So it's making a two-way match on those two property values to be able to find that specific transaction and launch it into DocLink. Now, there's other ways of finding documents in DocLink that aren't starting from the actual ERP system itself. If we wanted to keep users out of the ERP, Sage 100, and actually just go into DocLink and search and retrieve documents, we can as well. So in DocLink, we can, again, use the DocLink Smart Client. We'll go to the advanced inquiry this time, and we'll use a couple of our saved searches. So the first of which is we want to find invoices and checks. So talking about checks, we can simply use the same process you're used to, cutting checks in Sage. That might be the check payment, so electronic check, maybe generate ACH. That process is the same. We simply just send it to a virtual printer, and DocLink takes over and grabs all that data we want. So back in DocLink, we can go and search using our saved search. I'm looking for an invoice and check, matching the invoice number 31073, and I'm going to click on search. We can see here that we have the original invoice and the check. They're now matched by invoice number, there's check number, so we can actually tell an invoice has been paid by simply looking at the data on it. The check information, once it's cut, is going to take that check information and give it back to the invoice that it paid. So if we open these up, we can view them side by side. We can view the invoice information. That's what we have currently up here. So invoice information, item information, and check information is all grouped in a nice orderly fashion. We can now see the check number 59750 has paid that invoice, and we can now see the check linked to that as well. We go back to our search here about the airway property invoice. We can mouse over the airway property search term, and I can click on that. This functionality is called drill down searching, so we can actually search on anything linking to that vendor name airway property in the system. DocLink is going to search every document type, and this is going to prevent us from having to go back, doing another search. We can simply research what we want to find by simply clicking a single button click. All right, so if we go back, we're going to use another saved search. We're going to choose all invoices from 2017. This is going to be used for that example when we're dealing with auditors. So an auditor comes in and says, I want to see all your invoices for 2017. You can simply click on that save search and then search it. So now we have all those invoices from 2017. We can highlight those, mark them for download. What we're going to actually do is download a copy of all this, all the images and the data and the audit trail linking to that document, and save it out to a folder location for that auditor. So when I click Start, I'm going to download all these to a saved location. We're going to just say to auditor, click OK, start that transaction, and then download all those documents. When we're done, all those documents are now available in my to auditor folder here. And I can actually use a light client of DocLink to launch it. I'm going to go and point back to my folder where my data is located. And DocLink is going to open with that company information, that document type information, and now our auditor is going to be able to see all the documents they requested without pulling boxes, without finding images or data or PDFs and TIFFs in a folder structure. Now we don't have to put them back in their folders and search for them later. It's just an easy way to get the data that the auditor wants in an orderly fashion without actually pulling a license that normal users would be using. So Light Client does not pull out a license. They can search and retrieve just like they want, and then they'd be on their way. Thanks for watching.